All right, we are on the final 2 pages of this unit. These are graphing linear equations by slope-intercept. So this first page, we are given a number of equations. They are already written in slope-intercept form, which is good for us. If we have an equation that is not written in slope-intercept form, we have to manipulate that equation so that it is in slope-intercept form before we can start graphing. So let's get started. On the top of the page, there are some steps that you can be taking to help you remember what you need to be doing. So number 1 says write the equation in slope-intercept form. These first 9 are already in that form. Step 1A, we'll call it, in between steps 1 and 2, should be identify your slope and identify your y-intercept. Okay. Remember, our slope is the number that comes right in front of the x term, right in front of the x, and our y-intercept is the number that comes at the end of the equation, right? Just the number without any variable attached to it. So let's go over number 1. Let's do this one, and then we'll kind of start just working our way through them, and we'll go quicker and quicker as we go through the examples, as you'll start to see kind of how this works. So number 1, our y-intercept is going to be 5. It's what's on the end of the equation, and this is where I'm always going to start. I'm always going to start wherever my y-intercept is. So I'm going to go start at the origin here. Right? I'm going to start here. I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to put a dot on that spot. Now my slope is the number in front of the x. If I have just a negative, remember, just a negative is -1. So my slope equals -1. And whenever I just have a whole number, I'm always going to write that as a fraction over 1. Right? 1 over 1, 2 over 1, 3 would be 3 over 1, 4 would be 4 over 1, and so on and so forth. This will help me with my rise over run, remembering where to go and how to plot my next point. We already said our y-intercept is 5. And so here we go. Now we have our slope. We're going down 1 and over 1. The question is, do I go down 1 and over 1 to the right, or do I go down 1 and over 1 to the left? When I look at my slope is a negative slope, -1. And I know that negative slopes are going to go downhill from left to right. So if I'm looking at it from left to right, it should be angling downhill. So if I were on skis at the top of that line, I would be going downhill from left to right. Knowing that, if I make my line, and if I say I go down 1 and 1 to the left and put my dot, if I were to draw that line's now going uphill. So that's no good. I don't want my line to be going uphill. I want my line to be going downhill. So that means I have to go down 1 and over 1 to the right. So my next point will be in this spot, so that when I draw my line, it will be a downhill line. So let's go ahead and graph it. Down 1 over 1. And I can continue to do this, right? I can go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, for as many dots as I need to until I feel confident that I can draw a nice straight line. I can also go the opposite direction. I can go up 1 and over 1 to the left. So down 1 over to the right, up 1 over 1 to the left. I draw my line, connect all the dots, put my arrows on the ends, and there it is. That's my line. So I have to identify my y-intercept. That's going to be my starting point. I'm going to identify my slope. That tells me how many I am rising and how many I am running, right? Rise over run. I plot my points and I draw my line. Let's do number 2. I'm going to identify my y-intercept. It comes at the end of the equation. My y-intercept is -1. Y-intercept equals -1. My slope is -3. Slope is represented with the letter M. My slope is -3. If my slope is just a whole number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth, I always put that over 1. So let's graph it. I'm always going to start at my y-intercept. So I go to my origin, I go down 1. There is y equals -1. Now my slope says I'm going down 3 and over 1. Again, I have a negative slope. I have a negative slope, so my line should be going in this general direction. It can be going slightly in that general direction. It could be going really steep in that general direction, but it should be going from left to right, should be going downhill. So if I go down 3, 1, 2, 3, I have to go 1 to the right to get a line that's going to be going downhill. I can go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1 to the left. And again, I can do that again, 1, 2, 3, and up 1 to the left, and then draw my line. You need a minimum of 2 points, but it's always better to have more. I have a negative slope. My slope is going downhill. On this example, my slope's positive, so we should see a line that's going to be going uphill. First, I'm going to identify my y-intercept, and that's going to be a positive 2. Y-intercept equals 2. My slope equals 2 over 5. So this slope is already a fraction. I don't need to change it into a fraction by putting it over 1 or anything like that. It's already in a fraction form, so that's good. We'll leave it the way it is. Okay, so I'm going to plot my y-intercept, which is at 2. So there is 2 on my y-axis. Now I'm going to go up 2 and over 5. Reminder, we want our graph to be going uphill. So that means I need to go up and to the right or down and to the left in order to make this line go uphill because it's a positive slope. So let's start. We're going to go up 2, 1, 2, and 5 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and put our point. And then we'll go down 2, 1, 2, and 5 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't fit any more points on my graph. I'll run out of room. So we'll draw our line. Put our arrows on the ends. And there we go. We'll circle that. Next. My slope is -1 over 4. My y-intercept is 3. Y-intercept equals 3. Slope equals -1 over 4. I have this negative slope, so my line should be going downhill. If it is helpful to you to put a little reminder of which way your line should be going, then do that. Y-intercept is 3. I go to 3 on my y-axis, I put my point, and now I have to go up 1 and over 4 or down 1 and over 4, and I just have to make sure I'm going left or right. You have to choose the right direction to make my line go downhill. So if I go up 1, I need to go 4 to the left in order to make my line go downhill. Up 1, over 1, 2, 3, 4. I put a point. I go down 1, I'm going to go 4 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put my point. I've ran out of room. I'll draw my line. Number 5. Y-intercept. Slope. Slope equals 2. It's a whole number. I'm going to put it over 1. My y-intercept equals 6. So I'm going to go up 6 on my y-axis. I'm going to draw a point. Now my slope is 2 over 1. I can't go up 2 anymore. I've ran out of room, so I have to go down 2. My slope is positive here, so it should be going uphill. So that means I'm going to go 1 to the left. So down 2, 1, 2, 1 to the left. 1, 2, 1 to the left, 1, 2, 1 to the left. One more time, 1, 2, 1 to the left. I could continue making dots, but that's plenty enough. And we'll draw our line. Okay. All right, here we go. Back to this one. We are labeling our y-intercept, our slope. Our y-intercept here is -5. Y-intercept is -5. Our slope is -3 over 2. We shall now graph. We go to -5 on our y-axis and we put a point. And our slope here is negative, so our line should be looking downhill. So I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to go 2 to the left, 1, 2. If I were to go 2 to the right, that would give me an uphill slope. That's why I'm not going to the right. Up 3, 1, 2, 3, 2 to the left. And I will draw my line. On this one, I have no y-intercept. There's no number there. If there's no number there, it's 0. There is no number, so 0. Y-intercept. Don't be afraid of 0. Our slope is -4. When it's just a number, put it over 1. Okay, I go to my y-axis and I put a point at 0 right there in the middle. Now I go down 4 and over 1, so I have a negative slope, so my line should be going downhill. So down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1 to the right. That makes me have my downhill line. I can go up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 to the left. I draw, that's a bad line. Let's try that again. I draw my line to the left, or draw my line going downhill to the left. Cool. Next two, they are trying to trick you. Just be mindful, right? Be paying attention. Don't become a robot and just start getting into automatic mode. Still make sure you're paying attention to what's being told to you. Here, in all of the other equations, our x term comes first and our number comes second. Our x term comes first, our number comes second. Our x term comes first, our number comes second. On these next two, our number comes first and our x term comes second. Our number comes first, our x term comes second. Our slope is still the number that's attached to the x. So our m on number 8, our slope is 5. And if it's just a number, we put it over 1. Our y-intercept is still just going to be the number that doesn't have a variable attached to it. So our y-intercept is going to be -3. For number 9, our slope is -6 over 5. Our y-intercept equals 1. All right, so let's graph them. Y-intercept for number 8 is -3. I go to -3 on my y-axis. I put a point. I am now going to go up 5. It's a positive slope, so my line should be going uphill. I'm going to go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. I can't fit another point in, so I'm going to do my best to draw a nice straight line through those points. Close enough. Arrows on both ends. Number 9 has a negative slope. My line should be going downhill. My y-intercept is 1, so I'm going to go to my y-axis and put a point on 1. I am then going to go down 6, and I'm going to go 5 to the right, because 5 to the right will give me that downhill line that I'm looking for. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 5 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I put a point. I can go up 6. No, I can't. I run out of room. I have those 2 points. I will graph it. Arrows on either end. All right, we are going to continue with our graphing of lines. These next 8 problems are not put into slope-intercept form. The first 2 are in point-slope form. The next 6 are in standard form. It is possible to graph some of these lines without putting them into slope-intercept form. For the purposes of our class, we are going to always put our equations into slope-intercept form before we graph them. So if you are working on any of these things with a tutor or outside help, and they might be showing you other ways to graph lines without putting it into slope-intercept form, just let them know that your math teachers are wanting you to first convert these into slope-intercept form. All right, the x and y axis on some of these are a little wonky to see, so we'll kind of draw in just so it makes it a little bit easier to identify where we're supposed to be putting, where we're supposed to be putting our points. So I'll get these first 4 in there, and then I'll go along as we go. Cool. All right, so let's start with number 10. This is in point slope form, which means we're given a point and we're given the slope, but we want this in slope-intercept form, right? So we want to change this into y equals mx plus b. So we want to change this equation so it looks like y equals mx plus b. Just like solving equations any other time, if we have a number in front of a parentheses, we are going to distribute that number to both terms inside of the parentheses. The left side of the parentheses we're not touching, so that will drop down, y minus 2. And then we will multiply the 3 times both terms inside the parentheses. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 1 is 3. All right, so we're almost where we need to be. I want it to say y equals mx plus b. I have y minus 2 equals mx plus b, or 3x plus 3. So that means I need to move my negative 2 from the left side of the equal sign to the right side of the equal sign. Whenever I'm moving a term from one side of the equal sign to the other side of the equal sign, I have to use the opposite operation to do that. Since I have a y minus 2, I am going to plus 2. And what I do on one side of the equal sign, I am going to do to the other side of the equal sign. On the left-hand side of my equal sign, the 2's are going to cancel each other. I'm just left with y. I have my equal sign, And then on the right side of my equal sign, I have 3x plus 5. Now I can identify my slope, I can identify my y-intercept, and I can begin to graph this line. My slope is the number that is in front of the x, so my slope equals 3. Whenever it's just a number by itself, I'm always going to put that over 1. My y-intercept is positive 5. Y-intercept equals positive 5, and that's my starting point. My y-intercept is my starting point, so I'm going to go up 5 on this graph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I am going to put a dot. My slope is positive 3 over 1, so I'll go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1 to the right. Since it's positive, we're going up 3 and 1 to the right. If I want to plot a couple more points to get a more accurate line, I can go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1 to the left. And then I could do that again, 1, 2, 3, and 1 to the left. And once I think I have enough points to draw my line, I'm going to draw my line off the graph on the top, off the graph on the bottom, draw arrows on either end, and that's it. My line is going uphill from left to right. I have a positive slope, so that's correct. All right, number 6, similar question. It is in point slope form. We are going to change it into slope intercept form. I have a negative in front of parentheses. That means there is a negative 1 in front of that parentheses. That negative 1 is being distributed to both terms inside the parentheses. My y plus 6 on the left side I haven't touched yet, so that will drop down. Y plus 6 equals negative 1 times x is just negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. A negative times a negative is always a positive. I need to get the 6 from the left side of my equal sign over to the right side of my equal sign if I'm trying to put this into slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. It's a positive 6. I do the opposite operation to move something from one side of the equal sign to the other. So I'm going to say minus 6. The negative 6 and the positive 6 on the left side of my equal sign cancel. I now have y equals negative x. Positive 2 minus 6 is a negative 4. I'm going to identify my slope and my y-intercept. My slope is a negative sign, so that's really negative 1. And if it's just a whole number, I always put it over 1. My y-intercept is negative 4. Remember to include the negative or positive sign in front of the number with your y-intercept. Okay, so we'll start off at our y-intercept. That's always our beginning point. We're going to go to negative 4 on our y-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4 down from the middle. There's our starting point. My slope says down 1 over 1. So I'm going to go down 1 and 1 to the right, down 1 and 1 to the right. I'll do the same in the opposite direction. I can go up 1 and 1 to the left, up 1 and 1 to the left. My slope is negative, so I want it to be going downhill when I look at it from left to right. Off the graph on the bottom, off the graph on the side, add my arrows. And that line is graphed. Okay, we're looking at number 12. Number 12 is no longer in point slope form, but it is in standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. And I want that to turn into y equals mx plus b. So I'll rewrite it so it's a little cleaner. 5x minus y equals -3. Okay, well, I want it to say y equals mx plus b. I want it to say that right there. So that means I just want to have a y on the left side of my equal sign. So the first thing I want to do is take this 5x and move it over to the other side of my equal sign. To do that, I use the opposite operation. Since I have a positive 5x, that means I am going to subtract 5x from both sides of my equal sign. On the left-hand side of my equal sign, my 5x's go away. I'm left with a negative y equals, if I'm trying to get this into slope-intercept form, my x comes before my b. It doesn't have to, but that's how we're used to seeing it. So that's how I'm going to write it when I write out my equation here in a minute. My x comes before my b. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to write my x term, negative 5x first, minus 3. I'm almost to where I need to be. I want it to say y equals. It says negative y equals. To get rid of that negative 1 in front of the y, I just have to divide by negative 1. And whatever I do on the right side, I'm going to do to the left side, so I'm going to divide by negative 1. Everything on the right side gets divided by negative 1. My negative 5 gets divided by negative 1, and my negative 3 gets divided by negative 1. So on the left side, my negatives cancel. I'm just left with y equals. Negative 5 divided by negative 1 is a positive 5x. Negative 3 divided by negative 1 is a positive 3. My slope is 5. My y-intercept is plus 3. Remember, when I'm doing my slope, if I have just a number, I'm always going to put that over 1. We can graph our line. We start at our y-intercept. We go up to 3. 1, 2, 3. Put our point. We have a slope of positive 5 over 1. So we'll see if we have enough room to go up 5 and to the right 1. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to the right 1. Just enough room to fit that point on our graph. Since we can't go up any further, we're going to go back to our starting point, and we're now going to go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 to the left. From here, we can draw in our line, going through all of our points. Put our arrows on the end. Make sure your lines are going off your graph. And that is number 12. Okay, moving on, number 13. Same concept. This is in standard form, ax plus by equals c. You can see that a, b, and c are just placeholders for any numbers that the equations give. In this equation, a equals 4, b equals 3, and c equals 21. So I want this to say y equals, so I have to get rid of the 4x, and eventually I have to get rid of the 3 that's attached to the y from the left side of the equal sign. I have to move all that stuff over to the right-hand side. Since my 4x is positive, I am going to subtract 4x. I'm going to subtract 4x. I have 3y equals, I'm going to put my x term first, so negative 4x. My 21 is positive, so plus 21. I need to get rid of that 3. It's being multiplied with the y. The opposite operation of multiplication is division, so I'm going to divide by 3 to get rid of the 3 from the left side and introduce it over on the right. On the left side, my 3's cancel. That leaves me with y equals. Negative 4 divided by 3 is going to give me a decimal. If I do that in my calculator, I don't want a decimal. So I'm going to leave this as a fraction. negative 4 over 3x. 21 divided by 3, if I do that in my calculator, is going to be a positive 7. My slope is negative 4 over 3. My y-intercept is 7. And then I can begin to graph my line. So I go to my graph, I'm going to go up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to put my point. My slope is a 4 over 3, or a negative 4 over 3. I can't rise 4, so I'm going to have to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to have to go to the right 3 since my slope is negative. I want it to be going downhill. 1, 2, 3. I can do this again, down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 3, 1, 2, 3, put my point, and I can now graph my line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, go. All right, so I'm going down 4 over 3, down 4 over 3. Okay, a little bit quicker on this one. I'm going to subtract 2x. I'm going to subtract 2x. I have negative 4y equals, my x term comes first, so negative 2x. My 20 is positive, so plus 20. To get y by itself, I need to divide by negative 4. So I'm going to divide everything on the right by negative 4. The negative 4s on the left go away. I'm left with y equals negative 2 divided by negative 4. That can reduce down to a positive 1 over 2x. Positive 20 divided by negative 4 is going to be a negative 5. Highlight my x and y axis because it's a little bit difficult to see. My slope is 1 over 2. My y-intercept is negative 5. Let's graph. Go to negative 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put my point. I'm going to go up 1 and over 2. So up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, and I'm going to draw in my line. That's not the best line, but we're doing all right. Here we go. 14. Positive slope is going uphill from left to right. Number 15. I want to get y by itself. We'll highlight these x and y axis. Okay. I have to subtract 2x. I have to subtract 2x. That leaves me with 3y equals negative 2x plus 0. Do I need to write plus 0? I don't, but we'll put it there as a placeholder. I'm going to divide by 3 to get rid of this 3 on the left. What I do on the left, I have to do to the right. I have to do to everything over on the right. On the left, it leaves me with a y. On the right, 2 divided by 3 is going to give me a decimal. I don't want that, so I'm going to leave it as a fraction. 2 over 3x. 0 divided by 3 is 0. So I can write plus 0, or I can just write y equals negative 2 over 3x. I'm going to leave it how it is. My slope is negative 2 over 3. My y-intercept is 0. Y-intercept equals 0. My slope equals negative 2 over 3. 0 on my y-intercept is right here in the middle at the origin. And now I am going to go down 2 and to the right 3. Down 2 to the right 3. I can go back to my starting point and up 2 and to the left 3. Up 2 and to the left 3. And draw in my line. Okay, last two. A little bit quicker now. I'm subtracting 10x on both sides. I am going to be left with negative 8y on the left, negative 10x plus 24 on the right. Make sure you're keeping your signs with the proper terms. Dividing by negative 8 to get y by itself, dividing by negative 8 on the right, because what I do on the left, I must do to the right. On the left, I'm left with y equals. On the right, 2 goes into both 10 and 8, so I can reduce that down to 5 over 4x. It's going to be positive because negative 10 divided by negative 8 is going to be a positive. Negative divided by negative is positive. Minus a positive divided by a negative is going to be a negative. 8 goes into 24 3 times, so minus 3. If you're using your calculators, that's fine. Please make sure you are using your calculators if you are unsure about your mental math. Identifying my slope, I'm identifying my y-intercept. My slope equals 5 over 4. My y-intercept equals negative 3. I have my y-axis, I have my x-axis, and I can graph. So my y-intercept is negative 3. I go down 1, 2, 3, put my point. I'm going to go up 5 and to the right 4. I have a positive slope, so we're going up and to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put a dot. Up 5 and to the right 4. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To the right 1, 2, 3, 4. And we put our dot. We're going to connect our dots through the whole graph. Close enough. Draw our arrows. Last one. Let's put our y-axis, our x-axis. It's a little crooked. All right, we want y by itself. Minus 9x. Minus 9x. At this point, the pattern should kind of start to be showing itself. This should be kind of rinse and repeat. We're moving our x term from the left to the right, so we have 12y equals negative 9x, because we said minus 9x, that 12 is positive, so plus 12. I need y by itself, so that means I have to divide by 12, because 12 is being multiplied by y, so I'm doing the opposite operation. I'm dividing by 12 on the left, that means I'm dividing by 12 on the right. I'm dividing every term on the right by 12. On the left-hand side, my two 12s, 12 divided by 12 is just 1, so 1y equals, well, 3 goes into both 9 and 12. A negative number divided by a positive number is going to give me a negative 3 over 4. And then I have to make sure I don't forget my x. Did I remember my x there? I did. I don't forget my x. And then 12 divided by 12 is 1. I can identify my slope. I can identify my y-intercept. My slope equals negative 3 over 4. My y-intercept equals 1. And now I can graph. Y-intercept equals 1. I go to 1. I put my dot. And I can go down 3 and to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I can go back to my starting point. I can go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and to the left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Either way, it's going to give me that downhill slope that I'm looking for. I connect my dots. I draw my line off the graph. I try to make it look somewhat decent. And that's it. So there's a little bit of work to rearrange our equations into the proper form, but once we have it in that slope-intercept form, it should start to become pretty clear to you where our y-intercepts are, what our slope is, and hopefully this you will find to be, when you see these types of questions on your tests, you'll feel comfortable and confident being able to do this. If there's something that you're not understanding, you just don't get why I'm doing something, please let me know in class. Ask your teachers, come to my fit sessions, all of the things that you know you should be doing. Otherwise, I hope this helps. I'll see you in class, and have a great weekend.